You probably know serif fonts as the ones with the little feet. But did you know there are 6 major serif styles, each with its own personality and purpose? Let's explore serif typeface styles, their uses, some examples, and even a tiny bit of their history. Serif typefaces were created to make reading lots of printed text easy. That's because serifs are the typefaces that have those little feet on them. That's the definition everybody knows, but those little feet come in several varieties and only account for part of the differentiation between serif classifications. Old-style typefaces are those that generally include a diagonal stress, a thinning of the stroke diagonally rather than on the horizontal or vertical axes. That diagonal stress is usually tilted to the left. They also have low contrast between the thick and thin strokes. Getting back to the little feet themselves, old-style serifs are typically wedge-shaped, with bracketed serifs, curves between the serif and the stem. They also typically incorporate angled head serifs. Historically speaking, Old Style includes the first Roman typefaces created between the late 15th and mid-18th centuries, and modern typefaces inspired by that period. The Transitional serif style was established in the mid-18th century by British typographer and printer John Baskerville, when he pioneered new printing techniques that allowed for the consistent reproduction of more delicate strokes and subtler type features. Thus, Transitional is characterized by a greater contrast between thick and thin strokes, while maintaining bracketed serifs and angled head serifs. The stress in these typefaces is typically on the vertical. Following in the footsteps of Baskerville and his improved printing techniques, late 18th century Italian typographer Giambattista Bodani, who also wrote the Manual of Typography, created what would become called the modern type classification. The classification was originally called Classical Style because of a misconception that such typefaces were updated versions of classic type styles. The name was changed to Modern, but in the mid-20th century, wise typographers recognized that the word modern has an ever-changing meaning. They began calling the style Neoclassical or Didone, though the modern moniker persists in many circles. This style, by whichever name you choose to call it, is characterized by a dramatic, abrupt contrast in stroke thickness with little to no bracketing. The axis of curved strokes is typically vertical, and many stroke terminals end in a rounded shape evocative of pen and ink hand lettering techniques. Popularized in the 19th century by their high readability at many distances and suggestion of strength and strong tone, Slab Serif typefaces are usually heavy strokes with no, or no immediately identifiable, variance in stroke weight. Their serifs have no bracketing and no tapering off, leading to their popularly incorrect identification as square serif and mechanical serif faces. Slab serif is also referred to as Egyptian slab serif or simply Egyptian serif, because when Vincent Figgins created the first commercial slab serif typeface circa 1809, Napoleon had just returned from Egypt and published his account of the expedition, making all things Egyptian fashionable. Whereas most serif typefaces emulate pen-drawn writing, Glyphic faces evoke engraving techniques in the minimal stroke weight contrast, but especially in the triangular, sometimes spiky serifs one often finds in the letters carved into stone, bronze, or wood. Technically speaking, Glyphic is also subdivided into Glyphic and Latin classes, with the former having all the characteristics I just described, but slender waists or not perfectly triangular serifs, while Latin faces sport those triangular serifs. Faces classified as Clarendon were originally designed as bold, typically for use in headlines and accompanying more delicate body type. They began appearing in the mid-19th century, stemming from the original 1845 Clarendon typeface by Thorogood & Company. Their serifs are short to medium length and can often be described as bracketed slabs. Although the earliest Clarendons had a more subtle stroke weight variation, several modern interpretations have increased the contrast. Serif is not a single kind of typeface, but is actually a category with many styles or subcategories. Now you know about those styles, how to identify them, when to use them, and even many examples of each. Subscribe to my channel for more deep dives into sans serif, display, and other font categories. And if you found this lesson informative, please give it a like. Likes and subscribes count for a lot with YouTube. Until then, don't go too crazy kerning menus or street signs in your mind.